Hi, good morning, everybody, and welcome back if you were with us for the opening session this morning. I am so excited about this session. So the speaker today, our opening keynote, is my dear friend Laurie Ruettimann. She's a friend. Like, we also work on projects together all the time. My children think she's related to us. I'm not gonna argue with them. If I if I have questions about HR, bad behavior at work, or just generally how to get my life together, like, she is the first person that I like to call or text. But to introduce her to you to here today. So Laurie Ruettimann is a former HR leader, and she's now a writer, an entrepreneur, and a speaker. CNN has recognized her as one of the top 5 career advisors in the United States. And her work has been featured on NPR, The New Yorker, USA Today, The Wall Street Journal, and Vox. And now she's here. So with you. And the interesting thing about this is that they recognized that genius before her book was even published. So Laurie does have a new book coming out. Actually, I guess you have a second book. You wrote an earlier book about HR, but your big career advice book, it's called Betting on You: How to Put Yourself First and Finally Take Control of Your Career. And this is going to be coming out in January of 2021. The way I look at it is just in time. So Laurie frequently delivers keynote speeches at business and management events around the world. She hosts a popular podcast focused on fixing work. You may know her under the brands of Punk Rock HR and Let's Fix Work. And she lives in Raleigh with her charming husband and more cats that I'm going to ask her to to share up in Raleigh, North Carolina. And so I am, like I said, very excited to hear Laurie talk to us about content marketing careers and like what we can do to take control of our professional lives, like during this time when everything feels like it is completely out of control. So I'm going to let Laurie take it away for a moment. As I mentioned in the opening session, if you've got questions, we are going to hold back a few minutes at the end for Laurie to answer your questions. Please post them in the Q&A section of the chat and we will get them answered at the end. And with that, I am going to I'm going to hand this over to you, Laurie. Like, I am ready to hear this talk. I need this talk.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really honored to help kind of kick off your big marquee event. I mean, we've been having like little pseudo conferences for our entire lives, getting our friends around, talking about best practices, but it's really my honor to be here today and to talk to all of you as well about managing your life and managing your careers. You know, if I sit through another keynote speech where I listen to people tell me the world of work has changed, I'm going to throw up. Right? Like, I'm so sick of that conversation because I don't fundamentally believe the world of work is all that different. I mean, yes, okay, it's changed. I'm here in my stupid office at home and landscapers just rolled up in front of my house, right? And I'm trying to work and I have 4 cats and there's just chaos, and you're watching this event and you've got your children in another room placating them in some magical way. So yeah, okay, it's changed. But has it really? You know, if anything, the world of work kind of morphed, but not in March or April when you think it did, but in November of 2019, almost a year ago, on November 17th, 2019, the first case of SARS-CoV-19 was diagnosed in the Hubei province in China. So that's almost a year ago when COVID-19 reared its ugly head. And from there, individuals went to work, right? They didn't know they were diagnosed. And then they kind of infected their coworkers, and those coworkers went home and infected their families, and those families went to work. And so the cycle continued. People got on planes, the virus spread. And I think I would argue that it's not people who are the single biggest vector of COVID-19. It's work. Work infected us. And as a matter of fact, I don't know, like January rolled around of 2020, and all of my human resources lady friends were saying things like, God, the flu is so bad this year. Or, boy, I've had friends or my child who's had a nagging, persistent upper respiratory for like 5 weeks, and we don't know what it is. Or they had employees who passed away from SARS, like an upper respiratory illness, but they didn't really know why. And it was only when the government And the media told these HR professionals to take it seriously, that they went, oh my God, we need to do something at work. And what did they do? They fumbled to deal with illnesses. They fumbled to deal with vendors, suppliers, people who are part of this big ecosystem of the workforce. They stood up a work from home program, but they fumbled through it in a really weird and terrible way. So in that way, the world of work hasn't changed. Nobody was looking out for you in 2019 when SARS COVID-19 emerged. They weren't looking out for you at the beginning of the year when you were starting to get sick and you were calling in. They weren't tracking it. They weren't thinking through it. And I would argue that they're really not thinking about you today. And the only way to truly advance your career, whether you're a full-time employee, a contractor, a consultant, someone who dips in and out of the workforce, is to prioritize your life and put yourself first. Don't bet on your employer or your client to be an advocate of your career, because they're not. They're thinking about their own viability. They're thinking about profitability and productivity. You need to think about your own life and how to move the ball forward. So that's what I want to talk about today, because the world of work has not changed. You are your only advocate. You have to watch your back. And in order to do that, there are really 4 things that I want you to focus on. 4 things that I want you to do. The first is to really embrace a notion of self-leadership. The second is to double down on your well-being, your physical, emotional, and financial well-being. The third is to invest continuously in your learning. And the fourth is to learn how to take risks. So those are the 4 things we're going to talk about today. The 4 things that I've actually been talking about for 20 years, for my entire career, the things that really make up the backbone of high performance, no matter who you are. If you're a journalist, if you're a writer, if you're a producer, these are the 4 things that you need to focus on in order to move forward, not only with your career, but with your life. So let's talk about this idea of self-leadership, this idea of individual accountability. That's all it is. It's about saying, I am responsible for my life, my career, and my outcomes. Now, you may think, oh, I already do this, but I don't know, do you? The one example that I like to give is Nelson Mandela when it comes to individual accountability. Because, hear me out, Nelson Mandela was the first Black president of South Africa. But before that, he was jailed, he was tortured for his nonviolent passion for civil and human rights. And Nelson Mandela had every right to be angry, had every right to feel despair, had every right to be sad. And when he gained a position of power, to fight back in a violent way, but he didn't. In fact, when he was jailed, he treated his captors with more respect and dignity than they treated him. He said that no matter who I am not a victim. I've got my eye on a bigger prize. My identity is something else other than this immediate experience. So for you, that means boss, employee, there are no victims of circumstances when it comes to self-leadership. Now you may say, Laurie, that's great, but I'm no Nelson Mandela. And you're right, you're not. None of us are, right? He's a magical man. He is a leader. He is a hero. But there's a lesson in that, a lesson about dignity, a lesson about self-worth, a lesson about pausing, taking a breath, and realizing that the game you're playing is bigger than the immediate moment. So the other thing about self-leadership is that it's available to everybody. It does not matter where you fall on an org chart, your job title, your place in the corporate hierarchy, or whether or not you're a favored vendor or just somebody who kind of comes in and takes care of problems. Wherever you are in this corporate ecosystem, it doesn't matter, because self-leaders have a work ethic. They know the job they need to do, they know their why, and they do it. So someone like Michael Jordan is someone who, apparently a lot of people think displays self-leadership. I'm not going to say that's going to be my only sports reference in this presentation, but it's definitely one that I think most people can relate to. When we think about self-leadership, though, we have all these grand ideas about who makes up a self-leader, right? I just showed you Nelson Mandela. I just showed you Michael Jordan. But let's talk about what isn't self-leadership. It isn't unrelenting standards that beat you down. Tiger Woods is someone who is known for trying to achieve perfection, but lately in his life, always coming up short. Now, I'm not a psychologist, but I like to play one. And one of the problems I think with Tiger Woods is that he's playing a game in his head. He hears his father. He hears the media. He hears people saying, you need to be Tiger Woods. And so he's living up to this persona of what it means to be Tiger Woods instead of looking at who he is and really understanding his core values and what he wants out of life. And when he's playing that secondary game, he loses. Absolutely. He beats himself down before the world can do it for him. The second thing about self-leadership is that a lot of fake motivational speakers like to talk to you about what it means to be a self-leader. Like, you have to wake up at 5 a.m., you have to skip carbs, you have to meditate, and you should do all of those things if you want to do them. But nobody should be in a position to tell you what self-leadership means for you. You know who you are if you're doing this right. You understand what your life is all about. And you understand whether or not you can have carbs. For me, I feel like I can be a self-leader and eat some cookies. It's going to be okay. So I really want to come across in this section with the idea that self-leadership is all about you being the boss of your own life. That's it. It's not about looking to HR for answers, looking to your staffing agency for answers, looking to your business partner for answers. It's about looking within yourself, getting quiet, pausing, thinking about the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do, and then following through based on your educated instincts. That's what self-leadership is all about. That's what's going to propel you to the next level of your career and your life. So I'm just not going to run a poll because it's going to take too much time, but I wonder if you can do just a little self-reflection right now. How many of you feel like self-leaders today? You can leave me a comment in the public chat, the Q&A. You can say hello and raise your hand and say, I feel like a self-leader, or you can say, I need some work. I have resources for you at the end of this presentation to help you work on these skills. But know that a journey to self-leadership truly takes a lifetime. So how do you demonstrate self-leadership at work in the moment when you're dealing with difficult people or the world is chaotic or you've been furloughed or laid off or you're struggling to find work? Well, I want you to learn a quick lesson from my dad, who was born in 1948. He was truly a hippie and then lived through the 70s and raised me on Jethro Tull and Blue Oyster Cult. I mean, I didn't listen to Barney or Sesame Street. None of that shit in my life happened. My dad, when he wanted to teach me a life's lesson, talked about Jimi Hendrix and the Doors, right? He was always going to these musical references. So, it's just one of those things about my dad that he was kind of stuck in the 70s. But what I really find interesting about my dad is that he wanted to be a hippie and he wanted to drop out of society, but he also had a work ethic, just like I described as a self-leader. But he wasn't fully immersed in the world of self-leadership, and he would go to work and pay the bills. He worked at the phone company for 25 years, and it just kind of got him down. Promotions came and went, life came and went, but he never had a fully formed identity. And so in 1999, when the dot-com bubble happened, they offered him early retirement, and he took it. But he didn't have a plan, and he didn't have an identity, and he floundered for the next 10 years, going from odd job, really never making his mark in the world and being incredibly angry and incredibly lost. He blamed everybody else for his inability to find happiness. And I think there's just one thing I want you to hear from my dad's story, is that your work is not your worth. Self-leadership is a journey and a discovery to figure out who you are and how you make a mark in the world. And if you never become a VP, if you never become CMO, if you never become the editor of some division, it's absolutely fine, because you contribute in other ways as a parent, as a sibling, as a spouse, a partner. There are many ways that you make a mark in this world. And in fact, I would argue that the more you double down on those other areas, you become a great friend, you become a mentor, you become someone who's known for your compassion and your empathy. That has carryover effect to your job. So when I talk about self-leadership, it's not just about knowing how you make a mark in your industry. It's about how you make a mark on humanity. That's what this is all about. So That's my big grand thesis around self-leadership. But if you do want to practice it at work, I would recommend that you practice it in the small moments when the stakes aren't so high, right? When you're in a meeting and someone's pissing you off, don't take the bait. Try to resist. Try to be an active listener. When someone is irritating you on a Zoom chat, just let it go. Like, practice that. And I think that actually has carryover effect into your real life. So now that we've kind of covered self-leadership, something important for you to have at life and at work, I'd like to talk about well-being, something that I am super passionate about. In fact, Mary Ellen and I spend about 90% of our conversations talking about individual well-being. And I define it as the state and feeling of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. Now, that's a super broad definition, and only you know what that means for you. But there are 3 pillars of well-being that I think make up this conversation. The first is physical well-being, the second is emotional, and the third is financial. Physical well-being is more than just being thin, being tall, being disease-free, like all of the messages that society sends to us. Individual well-being is a choice to ensure a balanced state between your body, your mind, and your spirit. Now, only you can figure out what this means for you. If there were a playbook, I would be a millionaire. For some, it might mean that you do give up carbs. Again, I'm obsessed with this idea of intermittent fasting and keto being the way that we're going to be happy. But for some people, that may be true. For others, physical well-being may be going to church or going to temple and getting filled in a way that only your community can do. And for others, it might be physical exercise, right? I believe that creative people are hikers. And so for me, if I don't take a walk at least once a day, I'm doomed. I cannot perform. So physical well-being is something that you can only do for yourself, but it is a key pillar to make sure that you're not only surviving your career, but also thriving. Emotional well-being is more than just feeling happy, feeling secure, always being on. It's really about having a positive outlook that enables you to deal with anything that life throws you, from homeschooling your children to dealing with a friend who has COVID-19 that you can't see because she's in the emergency room and you can't be with her, right? I mean, there's a lot that life is throwing at us right now. And emotional well-being is not just about the power of positive thinking. It's about being emotionally regulated and balanced. This is something, again, that you can practice through mindfulness, through meditation, through pausing, taking a breath, through gratitude. You can hit the internet and learn all kinds of ways to do it. It's not that the resources aren't available to you. It's about making a choice that this is something that's important. It's more important than answering yet another Slack message at 8 p.m. at night. Financial well-being is this third pillar of well-being, and it's super important because it's about having the freedom and choice to make a good decision. You can't tell your boss or your client to take that job and shove it if you're broke, if you're enslaved to your debt. Now, if you're in corporate America and you have the opportunity, one of the most underutilized resources is the Employee Assistance Group. Your EAP is like a function of your organization that's there to help you through critical times, through hard times. But your EAP is a tremendous resource for financial well-being. They can help you think through a plan to tackle some of that debt, to free you up to do the things you're meant to do in this world. If you're not part of corporate America, and very few of us are these days, and a shrinking pool of us are actually, there are credit unions out there. There are resources. There are associations. But the key to dealing with your financial well-being is to make sure that you feel fully empowered to say, enough is enough. I deserve safety and security, the ability to plan for my future, and then go and have a conversation shame-free with someone about how to attack that plan. You know, many of us, if we were painting a kitchen, we would create a project plan, right? Or at least an outline. I think we should apply that same rigor to our financial lives. So let's talk about the third pillar of really taking control of your career as a content marketing professional, and that is continuous learning. One of my favorite authors is William Burroughs, I know it's a little weird, but I'm just going to leave it at that. Please don't judge me. He said that if you're not growing, you are dying. And one of the ways you grow, in fact, I would argue the only way you grow is through curiosity and learning. So I really think that sometimes we forget about this, especially when we're in the throes of a career crisis, or we've been furloughed or laid off, or we don't have any clients, right? We forget that learning is the thing that will set us free. And there are all different kinds of ways to learn. If you have a client or you're part of corporate America, I would lean heavily into structured learning environments. So that could mean going to a lunch and learn that seems stupid and hokey, but doing it anyway, because all learning is worthwhile. It could mean going to a talk that doesn't seem relevant to you. It could mean doing role-playing exercises that you would normally hate, but doing it with an open mind, trusting that it's going to pay dividends down the road. I also love organic learning opportunities, and I'll give you an example. Not too long ago, I had a client who brought in Ashton Kutcher to talk to their high-performing employees. Why Ashton Kutcher? Don't ask, okay? And I saw this and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ask if I can just sit in quietly. I don't need to ask Ashton Kutcher any questions. And I want you to say, ask Ashton Kutcher 5 times. You will fumble it just like I'm doing right now. But I don't need to ask Ashton Kutcher anything. I just felt that by watching him speak to a group of employees, I would learn. And I did. There are all kinds of weird, free ways that you can just tap into things going around you and say, yeah, I'm going to try to get something out of this, whether it's an awkward Zoom happy hour or a demonstration about basket weaving or a class on making stained glass online. Like, there are a million things that you can watch and get a little nugget that will carry over to your life and to your career. Do not take these learning opportunities for granted. These are the moments that are going to set you free later on in life. I think my most important piece of advice when it comes to learning and growing is to find a mentor who doesn't suck. Now, I have all kinds of things to say about Mike Pence, but I will tell you, Mike Pence represents a certain figure in corporate America right now who will not mentor a woman like me without someone else in the room. This is called the Billy Graham rule. And I'm going to swear, I fucking hate this, right? It's offensive. If you are a man in a position of power and you don't mentor people, you're not doing your job. You don't deserve your job. So if you see someone like them, make sure you work on your career and get promoted so you can boot that person out of their job. Like, get them fired because they don't deserve that work. But here's the real message I want to share with you about mentoring. A good mentoring relationship is worth 5 years. 1 year of that is worth 5 years of just regular learning on the job. So find a mentor, have a 1-year relationship with them, come prepared maybe once a month to ask good questions about who you are, where you're going, what the opportunities are in the marketplace, what you should learn, how you should plan your continuous learning. Use that year. And if it's successful, that 1 year of mentorship will turn into a lifetime of a friendship. So go out and get yourself a mentor. And if you need some help with that, come talk to me, come talk to Mary Ellen, come talk to all the people in this chat room that we're in right now. Ask for recommendations, but find yourself a mentor ASAP. Right. I very quickly want to talk about risk taking, because anybody who has done anything exceptional in their career has learned to take a risk. And I know for me, when I worked in human resources and I was miserable and I would get laid off or I'd find another job, I would have this expectation that the next thing I would have would be great and it would be terrible. That's called arrival fallacy. And the arrival fallacy is that you get that next great thing in your life and it's just as terrible as the thing you left, right? We want to avoid that. We want to go to the next thing and make sure it's worth our time. And you can do that through all kinds of exercises, but the first is to emulate the bravest person you know, right? Who is that individual? Mimic them. Make sure you do what they don't have to know, right? Make sure you do what they do. Watch them and take the good stuff that means something to you and do that, right? That's what we call a de facto mentor, right? Someone that doesn't know that they're mentoring you. And I have a ton of those in my life. I watch them and I go, yeah, I want to do this. I want to do that. I don't want to do that other piece that they're doing. That's one way to really take a risk. But there is a formal exercise that I want to teach you, and it's as old as dirt. It's called the premortem. The Stoics used to do it, and then it was taken on by other individuals in corporate America, right? But it's an excellent exercise to help you think through how to de-risk something and come ahead successfully. So, step one, think of an activity where you're about to fail. Maybe it's interviewing for a job. Maybe it's pitching a new idea to a client. Heck, maybe it's redoing your kitchen, right? We can just be silly here. But think of an activity where you're about to fail and fall flat on your face. Not how might you fail, not how could you fail, but how will you fail? Think about that. Then set a timer for 60 seconds. You don't need anything more than that. And write down all the ways that you're about to fail. So if you're about to interview for a job, write down how you think you might screw it up. You might talk too much. You might not make good eye contact. You might be too bouncy, right? There might be all different kinds of ways that you have failed in the past and you know you will fail again. 60 seconds is all you need. When the timer goes up, you have a roadmap. You have a list of shit that you need to fix. But the good news is that that roadmap is right there for you. And if you tackle that list before you actually do the thing you want to do, you have a chance of improving your success by over 30%. That is a competitive advantage that is unmatched by any bullshit career advice in the marketplace. Fix the ways you know you're going to fail, whether it's before a performance review meeting or an interview or before a really high stakes meeting where you have to communicate critical information. Flash forward, think about how it's going to fail and fix that, and you're going to come out ahead. That's not just advice that I use. That's advice from NASA, Cisco, IBM. Before anybody in this world does anything big, they do the pre-mortem. And I think it's time for you to do it too. So, if you want a career that you love and a life with purpose and meaning, where you can actually operate at the intersection where your skills and competencies are aligned with your passion and purpose, don't just follow career advice that you hear on the internet or read on the internet. Fix work by fixing yourself, by attacking those 4 pillars, even just one, and really trying to move the needle forward so that you can actually have a life you love and a career that's meaningful and that doesn't bring dread out in you every single day. So in order to bet on yourself, demonstrate self-leadership, invest in well-being, make a commitment to learning, and get skilled at risk-taking. That's what this is all about. Now, I promised you some resources out there. I have them. For the most part, they're free. On LinkedIn Learning, you can go and you can find courses that I teach on self-leadership and mastering conflict. And if you don't have a LinkedIn Learning account, don't spend good money. Just send me a note. I'll send you a link, okay? You can reach me at hello@letsfixwork.com. You can also stay up to date on all things related to career advice for creative professionals like you on my newsletter. And as Mary Ellen said, I have a book coming out in January called Betting on You. And I'm going to be giving away a ton of free copies because I'm trying to sell a book during COVID-19. So just hang with me. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to get the book for free between now and when it comes out on January 12th. So save your money. Don't spend your money if you don't have to, and hang with me. I've got your back. And with that, I'd like to answer a few questions with the few minutes we have left. Mary Ellen, you want to come back? Nope. Mary Ellen, you don't?
No, I'm coming back. I'm coming.
I just have 30 minutes to a blue light in my screen. So I guess the world of work has changed.
It's good. It's good. All right. So first of all, let's go see. We've got some questions popping up here. Let's go start getting them answered.
Gonna put on my glasses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So, Claire asks, every time I cover one of your talks, I'm like, I need a mentor. She said, so do I need to have like concrete long-term goals to find one, or are hazy desires an adequate starting point?
Oh my God, I love working with creative professionals, right? I think hazy goals and desires are fine. Like the thing about having a mentor is if you find the right one and you work with that individual, the goals and ideas that you have coming into the relationship are going to change and they're going to evolve and you're going to think differently about your life and your career at the end of that relationship. So it's fine to kind of come in with a POV or not, but really recognize that the mentor is going to change your life.
Absolutely. I was thinking about this. How do you know when you're ready to be the mentor? Like, do you, because sometimes we asked in one of the polls, like, do you mentor other people? And I had some people said yes, and some people said no, and then a few other people like that I would love to, and then some of them said I don't think I'd be very good at it. But for those people that say that they'd love to, like, what does that look like? Because a lot of our folks in here, they are like good, high-performing mid-career professionals, despite what their imposter syndrome might have you think. So what can they do? Like, how do they find good people to mentor?
That's a really good question. So first and foremost, if you are living and breathing and you're a decent human being who pays your taxes more than $750 a year, you can be a mentor. In fact, you should be a mentor. You contribute to society. We need you to mentor. And you can start informally, which is something that most of us do, by just seeing someone who's flailing and saying, you know what, I see that you're having a difficult time. I have some ideas, but I'm not necessarily going to share them with you right away. Would you like to talk about this? Right? That's it. Just start a relationship and go slow and practice. I think one of the beautiful things about mentoring is that it doesn't have to be this rigorous scheduled event on an Outlook calendar. It can just be caring about someone enough to ask them, do you need some help? Do you want to talk about it? I don't know, Mary Ellen, that's how I started as a mentor. And I wouldn't have even called myself a mentor back then. And then sure enough, people started reaching out to me and saying, oh, you gave Carrie really good advice, or, oh, you gave John really good advice. Can I talk to you about this? And word started to spread. So I think go slowly, go informally, and be gentle on yourself, especially those of you with imposter syndrome. Like there are plenty of idiots out there running the world, as we've seen. Anybody could do a better job than what we have in office right now. So I think this idea of imposter syndrome has got to end.
I often tell people that they're so, how did you know, like you could start a business or whatever? And I was like, I just looked around and realized that I was stupid enough to start a business, right? Because you just have to be just stupid enough to like not perform that pre-mortem all the way. Because if you really get in there, it's like you're totally dumb enough to do this.
That's really well said. I have to say something. I got sick and tired of hearing the message from other stupid people that I wasn't performing well enough. Like I looked around at my colleagues and cohorts when I was in corporate America and I thought, who the F are you to talk to me like this? You people don't have your life on lockdown any better than I do. And I think once you start to realize that, you just gain a kernel, 1 degree of confidence, you realize you can do so much more than you give yourself credit for. But you need to really invest in those 4 pillars that I talk about in order to execute above and beyond those idiots around you. So just even focusing on your well-being, like 2% more than you focus on it today, would give you a competitive advantage you don't even understand.
Right. So I think I have another question in here where somebody says, well, they were said earlier, they're really good at being a self-leader in their work life. And so I know who this is. So I'm going to say, yes, she is. But she wants to become a better self-leader in her personal life. So why is that so hard? How can we be so competent and confident at work, but have our personal lives be such a shit show?
Well, I want to say something. Oftentimes we don't admit that life isn't about a perfect balance and life is just messy in general. And so I think really owning that and saying, all right, we're living in the middle of a pandemic. This idea that this is a new normal is a joke, right? The world is messy right now. The fact that we wake up and breathe is a marker of success. So let's start to give ourselves credit for performing and getting through the day. But this idea that you're not a self-leader in your individual life, first of all, I would question that if you're a parent or a caregiver or just somebody who loves other people. That's the real hallmark of a self-leader. Maybe you don't have boundaries the way you should have them, but that's just practice, right? So start to practice at work. I talked about practicing when the stakes are low. maybe take that and apply that to your real life, right? Maybe don't try it at Thanksgiving when people are saying all kinds of stuff in front of you that you can't control, but maybe on a random Tuesday, if someone in your family is driving you crazy, you just start to test the waters, test your boundaries, right? Don't shame them in front of a group of people and I don't even know that we're doing that anymore at Thanksgiving, right? But don't try it when the stakes are so high. Try it when the stakes are lower.
Yeah, but it's really hard for people. It's hard for people to express those things. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that's the best way to do it at work and in our personal lives. It's just so, daunting. So I have another question here from Vicky, and she said, this is perfectly timed for me because we're about to have conversations at work about our goals. And I have some ideas, but I am struggling to define those ideas. Is there a good method I can use to suss them out?
Oh my God, there's a million methods on the internet. I think one of the things that's really important is that we oftentimes separate our work goals from our personal goals, right? And what I like to do is really get quiet and think about running my life like a business. And this was super important to me when I worked in human resources. Once I started to recognize that my company always put themselves first and always had time to make sure the organization was healthy and structured right, and always had money for the things that they wanted to do. So I started to kind of embrace that in my own life. My goals fundamentally changed both personally and professionally. So, if you have this idea, this concept that you want to get promoted or you want to take on more responsibility or you want to be an advocate for a project, what's the kernel of those goals are really like self-confidence, the ability to communicate, right? I would start to get quiet and drill down on the things that you want, look at the skills and competencies that are underlying those goals and work on those things in 2021. That's what I think. Mary Ellen, what do you think?
I think similarly, I think that sometimes we're in this space where we have soft skills, right? And it's like, as we all know, the soft skills are actually the hard skills. Everybody wants to go to the university and hire the people with business degrees, and then they come out and they complain that they can't write.
Yes.
Well, I know where they keep the people who can write, at the university, right? And writing, not just being hammering out words, but the clear expression of complex ideas and understanding the context of what's going on. And I think some of this is about, before we ask the world to value, these skills that we have, these extremely essential skills, especially going into the fourth industrial revolution, right? These are not the extra skills. These are the most human skills, and you have them. But before you can ask the world to value them, you're going to have to start valuing them yourself.
That's really well said.
Are you sure you're not in devaluing your own? This is I go to therapy and this is what we talk about. Right?
Mary Ellen,
self-worth.
This is so well timed because I think we have this culture, whether it's in corporate America or with our clients, where we look for feedback, right? And I think mature people don't look for feedback. They look for opportunities to improve, right? But they're not looking for a dialogue on their self-worth. And that's what feedback has become. And I think also one of the things that we can do as peer leaders in our lives is model this thing where we only give feedback to change somebody's life, right? Mm-hmm. So it's super important to me that I'm not nitpicking individual work and equating that to someone's worth, that I'm only intervening to say, you messed up this email campaign, right? This is why it matters. This is why we need to fix it, right? And this is going to change their life because it's going to improve their skills. Whatever the example can be. Don't go in just because you think you're going to be helpful and inspire someone. Don't go in on the nitpicky stuff. Go in only when it's important to the overall grand scheme of things. Try to change someone's life. I know it took off target, but I needed to say that today.
That's one of my favorite Laurie quotes, in fact. It's don't, and I try to apply that to myself, as a leader in nonprofits, as somebody who does work in my community with my children. It's is what I'm about to say, does it have the potential to change their life if they do it? If it doesn't, I should probably keep my mouth shut.
For sure. And when someone gives you feedback, you can ask yourself, is this going to change my life? Or are they being a dick?
Right.
That is totally okay to say. Is this really worth hearing? Or are they just getting something off their chest because they have issues with their partner, right? You can be discerning about the feedback you get. So I think this ties into goals because oftentimes we create goals based on other people's feedback about what we should and shouldn't be doing. Mm-hmm. Think for yourself. Do the work yourself. Really get quiet. And Mary Ellen, to your point, therapy doesn't hurt.
No, it never hurts anybody. Well, I guess somewhere out there, there's certain types of therapy that do, but we won't talk about those.
Fair.
You definitely don't need those people's feedback.
No.
So, all right. So I got a question here from Matt. He says, how do you overcome that feeling of doubt when talking about your potential next steps in your career to your managers, supervisors? Oh, Matt's second guessing himself before he goes in. Laurie, how does he get out of this?
I know.
It's a trap.
There are therapists out there, pop cultural phenomenon like Brene Brown, and they all talk about having the chorus in your head, right? The group of people who are sending you messages in your head, and they want you to swap out the chorus. They want you to swap out the, people who are in your brain talking to you about your self-worth. I would say just kick everybody out, right? There are some things you need to know that are true about yourself. You are worthy. You have an identity outside of work. And so if you know going in that you're educated, that you put in the work, that you have a work ethic, that you do all of these things right in life, kick all those other voices out, look yourself in the mirror and psych yourself up to have these conversations. These are not easy conversations, even for people who master self-leadership and master confidence, right? I mean, it's very difficult to go into a room where you sense there's doubt and hostility or tension and have a conversation about your worth and your ideas. But the only way you do it is by doing it. Kick those naysayers out of your brain and get to work on understanding who you are and what you bring to the table. That's what I think. Mary Ellen, what do you think?
You know what's interesting about the feedback aspect of this is that, you're talking about kicking those people out. I'm going to also tell you, kick them out of your life. Okay. Because life is hard enough without being surrounded by people who don't believe in you. And I'm not saying this in the sense that like you've got some wild ass ideas, but I'm saying for the average person here who's a smart person who works hard. If your friends and your family and the people that you're talking to every day don't support I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, they're probably perfectly reasonable ambitions, things like going back to school or, learning another language or getting a promotion. Like if you're not getting the kind of love and support, go get new friends. Like not only do you need to kick those voices out of your head, they need to be just swept on out of your life. And I don't care if it's your mama, if it's your daddy, if it's your sister, your best friend since elementary school. Like if you're not in a supportive, loving relationship where you're trying to make each other better and care for each other, they got to go. I know that's hard.
I love that.
Somebody who's done it. I know it is easier to say it than do it.
But, a lot of people suffer from learned helplessness or simply say, it's a privilege to kick these people out of your life. And so, sure, but you can quit people while they're still in your lives. You can quit prioritizing what they say. You can quit spending time with them, extraordinary time with them outside of your obligations related to work or whatever. You can quit listening to them. You can quit valuing their feedback. You can quit all kinds of shit without actually quitting that person or that job right away, right? I recognize that sometimes booting people out of your life is a process.
That's drama. Right? It's like, but you don't have to make drama. You just stop listening. Or like you can leave Facebook without announcing that you're leaving Facebook.
I'm a prime example of that both ways.
And I think the part B of this, the reason I say this is that because what you do want are people who are in your life who are day to day are so positive and so supportive and so encouraging that when they look at you and they tell you, girl, you are fucking up. Yeah. Like, that it is coming from a place of love, right? Awesome. Like, and you have that kind of relationship. I feel like I have that relationship with you. I have that relationship with my wife. I have that relationship, with Elena, who's one of the folks that are, is going to come speak later on today. I have that with Tom, on our team. I have it with Rex. I have it with our team. We have that. Like we can tell each other that, but I can do that because you're not beating me down every day. Like, so if you're looking around your life and you're surrounded by people who beat you out every day, why would you listen to them? Like,
well, Mary Ellen, I would say, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. I love the internet for that. I really feel too, there's an opposite side of that. It's two sides of the same coin. Those are the people in your life who, when you can't bet on yourself, they're going to either bet on you on your behalf, or they're going to encourage you to bet on yourself. Like, absolutely. No book starts. So I know this in my own journey. No creative endeavor starts. Nothing worthwhile starts alone, right? And so had I had people in my life, and I did actually, who were like, this is never going to happen, or this is going to be terrible, it would have never gotten off the ground because that's all I would have heard. But I had people like you, Mary Ellen, in my life. And wonderful men and women who said, I believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. And I think that's the most important thing about self-leadership, something that I didn't talk about in this presentation. But you can't be a self-leader in a vacuum. You have to surround yourself with other people who believe in this philosophy, other people who believe that the point of life is to get better, not to stagnate, not to get worse. And the point of life is to try. That's the biggest and greatest differentiator between the people who are happy and the people who are not. The people who are happy, they try. That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, we have time for like maybe one or two more questions. Do y'all want to drop a couple more questions over here in the chat?
Does anybody want to ask about my 4 cats that you slammed at the beginning of the presentation? I have to say, one of them.
Your cats. I love. You said you had 4. I said you had 4. Like, I love these cats. I have chickens. That wasn't judgmental. No one's asked me how many chickens I have.
That is 100% true. I have to say, one of my kittens, I have a kitten now. I wasn't planning on it. I wanted a dog during the coronavirus, but these stray kittens came into my life, 4 of them. I got 3 of them adopted. I fostered them. That was my COVID-19 project. And I kept one because really nobody wanted her and she wasn't going to go anywhere. But, this is, I think, an important discussion to have. When the world is crazy and the world is chaotic, don't double down on work, double down on the other things in your life. You've got your chickens, Mary Ellen. I fostered kittens. I tried to give goodness in other places when my business was shutting down and all these speaking events were canceling. Like, you know what? I'm not just going to sit on my butt and feel sorry for myself. I'm going to do some good in the world. I'm going to foster kittens. So my kitten, Spicy, the last one here, will hopefully be my last kitten ever, which is why she's so special. So I love her.
And she's adorable. We can send kitten pictures for follow-up. I have a great question here that I know we can, almost everybody's going to relate to this. How do you maintain healthy levels of self-leadership at work when you're being micromanaged?
Fuck those micromanagers, right? Maybe first and foremost, hear that you don't deserve to be micromanaged. And I think people who micromanage are really lacking something in their lives and are not self-leaders, right? So it's, first of all, you have to know that micromanagement is not about you. But if you're a self-leader and you know that your work is not your worth, and this is the price of getting a paycheck, that micromanagement is just something you have to manage, right? It's not a statement about your identity. And sure, it's inconvenient, but you have a work ethic. You're just going to do it. You're just going to get it done because that's the thing that gives you a check to get you to your beach house, or that's the thing that gives you a check to pay your mortgage or pay your children's daycare, right? This is part of the bigger scheme of things, and it's no big deal. So a lot of times we say, oh, micromanaging, it's terrible. Sometimes it's just the thing we're doing now that we have to get through now to get to the things we want to do later on. So let's de-escalate that and not give this person such an important role in our lives, because if they're really a micromanager, they're either not going to last in that job for very long, or you're not going to last because you have some dignity. You're going to find something else. I don't know. That's what I think, Mary Ellen.
And I'll be vulnerable here for a second. I think as a manager, as a leader, as a business owner, the times in my life when I have micromanaged people, right? When I've caught myself, as much as I hate it, right? And then I see myself doing it, it has always been a function of other things happening. That's and right. Feeling out of control about other aspects of my personal or professional life, or feeling like, like I'm catching it from like multiple angles and I can't control these other messy things. So, but I can control this. And being a former copy editor, like it is incredibly easy for me to get down in the weeds. But like now here at age 43, almost 10 years into owning a business, I at least try to catch myself and say, girl, if you care that much about that hyphen, like what are you avoiding? like that is not going to make or break, whether this business succeeds. Like, what are you doing? And that's always a function of me. And so I know I'm saying this not to beat up on myself, but just because if you've ever wondered what is motivating, I'm telling you, like, it is not about you. It is about that other person's like a lack of self-feeling like they're in control.
That's really 100%. Well said. Yeah. I teach, not to just shill for this, but I'm just going to totally be proud of the work that I've done in that LinkedIn course on conflict management. One of the principles I've been teaching for 20 years is that when you have conflict with your boss or a supervisor or somebody that you're working with, especially if they're micromanaging your stuff, it's important for you to demonstrate empathy and compassion and have that brave conversation and ask, what's going on here? And Mary Ellen, to your point, when you ask that question, it gives your boss, your leader, your peer an opportunity to say the things they wish they had been saying all along, right? Oh, corporate's on my butt, or we've got a tight timeline. It at least affords an opportunity to have a conversation and to break down behavioral patterns. So for me, if you're being micromanaged and you want to be a self-leader, be brave, be bold, and ask that person for a virtual coffee and just say, what's going on? Like, what's up with this? Or how are you feeling? How are you doing? Those questions, they change lives.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing, that is the feedback that changes people's lives, right? It's like, girl, what are you doing? And you know, you may feel like you can't do that to your boss, but you can totally do it to your boss if you do it right. And he's not, I don't think he's in this session anymore right now. I think he's setting up for the next one, but you know, who's really good at this is Rex. He is like the master, like at managing editor of like with everybody, just having that. So what's going on? Like, you know, and you find yourself telling him, and I know this is going to go in a movie at some point and it's going to be so embarrassing, but it's still really valuable. I have a one last question here, and this comes from Vicky, and you'll like this question, Laurie. It says, I'll ask about your 4 cats because I also have 4 cats. How do you keep them off your keyboard? Mine sure don't. So my coworkers sometimes get some very strange messages from me.
I love that question. You know, I think all of us are having so the world of work has changed in very superficial ways, right? And also in some meaningful ways where we're seeing inside someone's home. You're seeing this corner of my office because again, my neighbor's landscape crew rolled up. We're starting to get a little bit more intimately connected with the people we work with. We're connecting with them as humans. And so if your cats step on your keyboard and send messages, that's a-okay. And people should just deal with it, especially if you perform at a high level and you do a great job at work, nobody gives a shit. I think that's the most liberating and important thing to come out of COVID-19. The things we used to care about, we don't care about anymore. That part is really great.
I'll pay extra for that because that's hilarious. You know, or like the kid thing. I love the fact that like we had enough people getting their, you know, big important once in a lifetime interview with BBC getting crashed by their children wanting a snack and it's happened to men and it's happened to women. And I'm like, can we just, when we go back to normal, can we bring that back with us? Because I love seeing the people I work with, seeing their kids and seeing their houses and seeing their pets. And I don't know, I like seeing them in that fuller, richer environment. You know, to the degree they're comfortable, right? I know some people, their boundaries are a little different there, but I actually really love it. I love seeing
it too. You know, this morning, right before we logged on, I had to move my computer and I knocked off a mug off my desk and it cracked into a million pieces. This is real life, people. You know, we don't have to have personal brands. We're not a tube of toothpaste. We're not a bottle of laundry detergent. We are human beings with souls and faults and fallibilities. So the more we embrace that, I think the more we kind of step into this authentic form of self-leadership and just say, this is what it is. And I know what I deliver is pretty effing great. So deal with it. Yeah. So
on that note, my last note here, I'll let you see my coffee mug. I've broken a few of these, not too many, but this is my Calamity Ware. Right. So if you guys, I don't know if you guys have all seen Calamity Ware, but I drink my coffee in 2020 out of a mug that has monsters and robots and poodles and a big pterodactyl and a Loch Ness monster, because I really felt like, you know, my wife gave me this for my birthday this year. And I really feel like it was the perfect, like, way to drink my coffee in the mornings. And we've already broken half of the dishes, which is the most 2020 thing ever. Do you know what I'm doing in response? My new hobby is, I can never say the word right, so I'm not going to mess it up, but it is the Japanese art of repairing ceramic so that you take it and you put it back together with the gold leaf. Like I am resining. My friend Tina told me about it. So I'm over here putting all the broken pieces back together, but not invisibly. Like I'm letting the line show because
I love that. That's beautiful.
That's what's up over here.
Mary Ellen, little Bub and I on my mug right now, my replacement mug, are totally toasting you for that. So cheers, just showing the cracks in our lives. I think that's the most important thing we can end on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Laurie, for coming. I love hearing you speak on this. It's always like getting like the best pep talk from your older sister, best friend, like smartest friend at work who's just a little bit got it together like more than you do.
That's me.
Your hair
I got it together.
And your hair looks good. All right, y'all. So thank you so much for coming. I'm going to give y'all everybody 5 minutes to go again, refill your coffee, whatever kind of mug you're drinking it out of, and come join us over in the next. We have a couple of sessions coming up next. So one of them, I am going to be interviewing, doing a Q&A with Natisha Nat, who is the head of communications for the Louisiana Housing Corporation. And we're going to be talking about how they built the state's first housing conference, like pretty much overnight. Natisha is a powerhouse. You're going to love her. So you can pop over for that one. The other session, which is equally as awesome, and I'm just going to have to watch it on a recording later, is going to be with Sarah Gressenbach, and it's going to be getting the most out of your content archive from one-time investment to recurring ROI. So that's what's coming up next. Go pick your session. I'm going to go let my dog out, and I'll see you in a few. Bye. Bye.